Welcome. I want to talk about postnatal health, in particular, postnatal mental health. A little bit about who I am. I have qualifications in complementary medicine, medicines management, evidence based complementary medicine, and I'm a naturopath. Most importantly to you, who's most likely postnatal, I'm a mum. And I struggled after both of my pregnancies with postnatal depression and anxiety. I also had some postnatal rage. That caused me to look into what was actually happening with my body and my health and to deep dive into what I could do to help myself, but also to help others because I noticed so many other women were also struggling with this. This is a little old. So I am a mum of two boys, yes. Those boys are now 7 and 5. I'm just going to sort this hair out. Now, that's better. All right, let's get started. So motherhood is the process of matriescence. It's the process of becoming a mother. Those physical, psychological, and emotional changes you go through after the birth of your child now have a name, matriescence. Matriescence is like adolescence. Think about it. There's body morphing. The brain is reorganized. Huge hormonal shifts. Both phases of life have a lot in common. It's one huge difference. Society has space for adolescence. Adolescence is spoken about and expected to be awkward. But matriescence, people expect you to be happy while you're losing control over the way you look, feel, and think. When a baby is born, so is a mother, both unsteady in their own way. I want to go over the different changes that happen when we become a mother and explain how they impact our mental health, how we see ourselves, and how society expects us to present ourselves. I'm going to start with brain organization. The brain is remodeled during pregnancy. On average, it shrinks by 5%. I know that sounds really scary, but we start off with the picture of the wires everywhere. They're a mess. That is the synapses in the brain. That's how they're laid down during childhood and as we mature. During pregnancy, as early as 6 weeks, the brain starts to be reorganized and it's completely rewired, neat and ordered. That 5% of shrinking is actually the declutter of what's no longer necessary now you're going to be a mum. This happens for each and every pregnancy, no matter if there's a birth afterwards. We get upgrades. Brain upgrades include IQ, emotional intelligence, smell and taste, social reasoning, and facial recognition. These are all helpful for being a mum. We need them to nurture this beautiful baby that we've created. Did you know you can tell if someone has had a full-term pregnancy by a functional MRI of the brain? The degree of baby bonding is highly correlated with the degree of grey matter plasticity that has occurred. There's also hormonal shifting. These upgrades include installing oxytocin, the love hormone receptors in the brain. The role of oxytocin and the upgraded stress response is responsible for the transformation of me to we. So we start to think about ourselves as more than just our physical being, but also extends to the baby as well. Hormonal shifts. This is a hormonal shift that happens at birth, and it's when you just look at this, it's just insane in my opinion. This is 3 months postnatal. And so right in the middle here, that dotted line, you can see that that's where we have this massive peak of progesterone, prolactin, so our milk hormone, estrogen, and our love hormone, oxytocin. Now, estrogen is going to plummet once Bub's born. Progesterone will as well. Prolactin, as our milk comes in, it waves up and down while we're breastfeeding. Oxytocin comes in and out as well. Did you know that your thyroid does much the same? It's not actually on this diagram, but it takes 3 months for a thyroid hormones to restabilize post-birth. And it's that shift from pregnancy to postnatally with our thyroid. It really struggles why we actually lose a lot of hair. It's really common to lose clumps of hair. And so one of the most common questions I get asked actually, is it normal to be losing hair? Often if you're losing hair postnatally, it's normally quite normal. If it lasts longer than 3 months, then it's worth getting your iron and your thyroid levels checked. So matrescence is a critical time. The new systems need to recalibrate and for the mother to get used to the new hardware and software upgrades. Most of this happens in the first 3 months, but it can take up to a year. I just want to let that sink in, that it can take up to a year for our bodies to recalibrate once we've given birth. But that we're expected to meet for coffee and show off a baby within a week of giving birth. I just, understanding what's happening to a mother's body, I really struggle with the societal pressures. And I would deeply urge you, if you're still in that first month, to deep rest. If you're still in that first month postnatal, I'd urge you to look up the 4th trimester. The first 100 days, you need deep support and a priority of sleep for the first year. And I know these messages aren't new, they're common. We hear about that a lot. But I'm going to go a little bit further and explain why we should be doing these things. And why the dishes really can wait. And the dirty house really can wait. And I would like to go back and tell myself. There's such an emotional push and pull in matrescence. And the baby hormones, oxytocin, pull you in as a mother. But your brain pushes you away. Reminds you of other relationships, work, hobbies, physical needs such as sleep, eating, exercise, sex, and going to the bathroom alone if possible. It's a lot. And I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and really don't give ourselves credit for what we're going through, and perhaps don't even talk about the emotions going on for us, that there is so much shame and so much guilt in that push that we can feel as new mothers. When you preserve a separate part of your identity, you're leaving room for your child to develop their own. And I think that's so powerful to think about and create space for, leaving some of your old self, because so much has changed and morphed, and it's so natural and beautiful, and it's such a beautiful transition in all its awkwardness. You are still a human. You still have that pre-baby, pre-motherhood hobbies and ideas and friendships. All right, let's move on to mental health. You can really see a bit of the impact that becoming a mother can have on your mental health. So postpartum mental health. I'm going to touch on depression, fatigue, anxiety, blood sugar dysregulation, and depletion, and what they all have in common. Let's start with where are we at. These stats are a little old, a couple of years. Like I said, my boys are a little older than when these slides were first originally made. But back then, a couple of years ago, there was 309,000 births per year in Australia. More than half of mothers experience significant fatigue. 40% of mothers feel overwhelmed, depressed, or anxious in the first 3 months. 1 in 5 new or expectant mothers experience some form of postpartum mood disorder. 50% go untreated. Of the treated 50%, the cost to the Australian economy is $433 million per year. Postpartum mood disorders are the #1 complication associated with childbirth and the #2 cause of maternal mortality. Symptoms of mental health disorders that might contribute to physical conditions. So if we're fatigued and exhausted, we have headaches, migraines, too little sleep or too much sleep, GI problems, gut problems, including reflux, irritable bowel syndrome, heart palpitations, hand trembling, cold hands, feet always cold, always sweating, menstrual disorders such as PMS, heavy menses, menopause, medication that can cause depression and anxiety, or the above conditions. This list is just pointing out that there is often a lot of contributing factors to postnatal mood disorders. Often we don't actually dive in and look at these, and that's a lot of what I do as a naturopath. If you come to me struggling postnatally, I'm going to be looking into all of these areas, and we'll be checking them off and making sure that everything is accounted for and they're not contributing to your poor mental health. I'd like to go over common mental conditions that cause or mimic anxiety or depression that are worth screening for. Anemia. So that's really common to be anemic postnatally. So anemic means that your iron levels are low, and if you've lost a lot of blood during the birth, or like most women, in that 3rd trimester your iron completely crashed, never really caught back up, can leave you feeling really tired and fatigued, which can then contribute to anxiety and depression. So that is also a nutrient deficiency. There's lots of other nutrient deficiencies, particularly postnatally, that can cause issues that can look like anxiety and depression. Again, one of the very first things I'm going to do with a mum that comes to see me struggling postnatally is check for nutrient deficiencies. You've just grown another human, and your body actually favored the baby over yourself. That means that your body will literally break down its teeth to make sure that baby gets enough calcium. We will literally break down our brains to make sure the baby gets enough omega-3s. It's our fat source. So highly likely that you have some nutritional deficiencies postnatally. Hypoglycemia, so low blood sugar. I see this a lot, especially in breastfeeding mums. And it's from being nap trapped. Sat down on the couch with Bob to give them a feed and they've fallen asleep. You don't want to wake them. They've been sleeping so terribly. You're hungry, but it's not worth it. You're going to take a nap instead. And your blood sugar levels plummet. Or picking really terrible foods. And that's where you can end up with hypers, which is down lower with that pre-diabetic and diabetes. Because you're hungry, but you don't have time to make food. Inflammation levels are directly correlated with mental health postnatally. There's a study that I read recently where if inflammation marker CRP was taken at the birth, they can actually predict those mothers that are going to become depressed purely by the level of CRP in their blood at the birth. That's an inflammation marker. I would love that to become routine. At this point, I haven't heard of that happening, but hopefully in time to come. Hyper or hypothyroidism, thyroid really struggling to recalibrate post-birth. Again, you've given all the nutrients to the baby. You've not left enough for your own thyroid health. High blood pressure, another one, can cause you to feel really quite fatigued. And skipping to the bottom there, because we've already been over diabetes, medication side effects or interactions. So postpartum mental health, just want you to have a look at this. On the side where it's lit up pink, this is the parts of the brain that are lit up in postpartum depression, in postnatal depression. Now have a look over at the greens and the yellows. This is the parts of the brain that are impacted and lit up in major depression or general anxiety. There's a couple of regions that are the same, but majority are not. They are different conditions. General depression, general anxiety, major depression, they are different to postnatal depression and anxiety. And we are going to learn so much more in years to come. Now we are researching women, but at the moment we're treating them the same. And the stigma and the shame comes with that because it's the same, but it's not. It's completely different. Depression or fatigue. So I really would like to go over this one and just the similarities between depression and fatigue. When you consider symptoms of both, they're similar. With an average of 700 hours sleep lost in the first year of becoming a mum, are you tired or are you depressed? Because once you get tired, you become depressed quite quickly. There are 9 questions used to diagnose depression. In orange are the same questions used for diagnosing fatigue. It's a huge lap over. Are you anxious or do you have low blood sugar levels? Because they're much the same as well. These are the questions that we would ask to diagnose anxiety or anger. On the other side, we've got low blood sugar levels or hypoglycemia. Mild signs of them. This isn't drastic. This is just sitting borderline. You can see the ones in the pink that are the same. So we've got palpitations, irritability, and fatigue. The one in orange, I've circled the same because they are the same thing. They're just a different way of saying it. There is a couple of differences, but definitely something to consider. The carbohydrate cycle. So when we eat breakfast, first thing, our blood glucose levels get high. Sorry, I'm just reminding myself what this one's talking about. Oh, it's the crash. Yes. Okay, so if you eat a high carbohydrate breakfast, which is toast, cereals, a lot of prepackaged breakfasts, up and goes, all of those are really high in carbohydrates. So once It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours before your glucose starts to come back down. At the peak, tryptophan turns into serotonin and everything is good. You're feeling well. But as your glucose drops, your insulin levels drop and your adrenaline kicks in. And that's when there's a bear in the room and anxiety levels. That's when we go back to this one and we start to feel nervous, trembling hands, increased heart rate, palpitations, increased sweating, hunger, irritability, fatigue, mental concentration's gone. Okay, this is what happens when we eat a high carb breakfast. What happens if we eat protein for breakfast though? We have this curve in here. It fuels your brain for 3 to 4 hours. 3 to 4 hours gives you an opportunity to make another meal before your glucose levels are plummeting again. Which is why I highly recommend all postnatal mothers, all of them, whether you're struggling with your mental health or not, to eat a protein-rich breakfast, protein in your lunch and in your dinner as well, and eat every 3 to 4 hours. I love snacking on nuts, nut bars, jerkies, cottage cheese are all really high in protein and they're fantastic during postnatal, during that first year. Why? So postnatal depression and anxiety. Fuel your brain, not your anxiety. Now I'm going to lead into some postnatal depletion. I've touched on a little bit already. These are symptoms of fatigue and overwhelm that don't start to correct itself by the end of the 4th trimester. So if you're not feeling yourself and you've hit 3 months postpartum, it's time to really look into your nutrient status, because these symptoms can be ongoing for 7 years beyond the birth. So they can be postpartum depletion can include physical symptoms, cognitive symptoms, emotional symptoms, and other features. It can also worsen medical issues, especially inflammatory conditions. Why are we depleted? You know, I think that most of us are depleted heading into pregnancy. With the average age of mothers for the first child in Australia now up to 30.9 years, they're already pre-depleted, with a loss of 700 hours of sleep in the first year, principally a hormone-driven condition, false ideas around motherhood and mother care. Causes us a lot of depletion. The most common depletions I see is iron. There's a lot of anemia postnatally. Huge thyroid conditions, particularly in Tasmania, and I think that's got a lot to do with the depleted iodine in our soils and iodine deficiencies. Iodine preference has been given to the baby, leaving mother really depleted. Huge inflammation levels, and I think that comes from eating convenience foods that don't have the best oils, a lot of seed oils. Getting back to proper fish oils, olive oils, avocado oils, rather than canola and vegetable. They're not good for us. What else do I see? Magnesium, huge deficiency in magnesium. We use magnesium when we're stressed, and I think that so many mothers are stressed with all of the impacts of becoming a mother and what that entails. All of the things, the constant checklists in our head, whether we've got everything and all of those things, that depletes our magnesium levels. Calcium levels, I've touched on that earlier with bone health. Interesting, calcium levels, if you're breastfeeding, at around that 12-month mark of breastfeeding, you actually start to absorb more calcium than you do in any other time of your life. So it's a great time to replenish calcium postnatally. Vitamin B's also burnt out, I think, during pregnancy, but also due to mood. That's this cortisol, stress hormones really deplete our B vitamins. All amazing to be checked. And just on that, before I move on, I work a lot in postnatal depletion, especially when you're wanting to have another child. I see a lot of mothers need, then it highlights they've got time for themselves and they come in and they get some help. I think every mother at that 6-week check-in should be having a blood test to check these nutrient levels. Such a basic thing that would make a massive impact, and something that I'm a huge advocate for. Instead of asking how you're going to prevent another pregnancy. Honestly, I don't know a mother that is interested in getting pregnant again at 6 weeks postpartum. I think that whole conversation could be really flipped and nurture that mother more. In years to come, I hope that happens. But in the meantime, I'm there to pick up that. Come and see me. Get a blood test done. All right. I would like you to really think about optimizing your brain's fuel supply. Eating protein every 3 hours. Try it for 3 days and see how you go. My gift to you is a free 1-day sample diet of a postpartum mental health plan. For postpartum mental health. I have meal plans on my website. I can custom make meal plans. I do a lot of health checks and assessments. You can book at my website there, www.ashleytabrett.com. I've added this one in because I just think it's really important one to think about. And really think about where our power supply is and where it consistently is sitting, so you get some help and some support before you're flatlining on one all of the time. We want to sit around 7. Good energy, I can handle whatever comes and needs rest at the end of the day. That's a pretty standard day. Unrealistic to think we've got great energy, I can have a challenging day and energy to enjoy the evening. You're a new mum, you've got a new baby, that's probably not realistic. You're probably going to be sitting around that 7. But if you're finding you're sitting around the 5 or lower consistently, it's time to reach out. Get hold of your GP, get a blood test, contact me, contact a good naturopath in your area. There's lots that can be done, and you deserve it. All right, so my take-home messages. My Matri Essence plan, deep rest for the first month. Really, really important. Deep support for the first 100 days. Prioritize sleep for the first year. Remember to eat, in particular protein, every 3 to 4 hours. Seek support. It's okay not to be okay. Seek support if you need it. And here's a support. You can drop me an email, book in on my website, send me a text. I'm here to help you, and you deserve it. You're doing amazing. Remember that.